Initiating moisture.
What's up everybody, it's Critical. Just saw Ghost in the Shell and wanted to give it a review and slap this bad boy on the moist meter. So grab a towel, cause we're about to get wet up in this bitch. Now let me start off by saying I am quite familiar with the Ghost in the Shell series. I've seen the original movie, however I don't want to compare this new one to the original one. I want to review this movie as if it's the very first Ghost in the Shell anything, brand fucking new name, no one knows what it means, for all people know it's about a haunted gas station. I just feel like a lot of people will write off movies when it's compared to the original source material. Oh, if you loved the original, you'll love this. And a lot of people will be left wondering, well, if I'm not familiar with the original, am I going to like it? Is it worth seeing? So don't worry, I'm here to get a boner and answer questions, and I've already gotten a boner. Let's go ahead and start with my favorite thing about this movie, which is the visuals. The entire city just looks fucking amazing. Everything in the movie is amazing. There's a lot of CGI, but a lot of practical effects, and practical effects just make movies fantastic in my opinion. It just raises the visuals to a level you can't achieve with just CGI, and Ghost in the Shell really blends them both beautifully. The characters looked cool as shit, especially the enhanced characters in this movie. They looked like the fucking feral offspring of a man and a Terminator at some points. There was a gang member in a club scene that had this weird iron jaw. He looked like Jimmy from Ed, Edd n Eddy if Jimmy was really badass. I really can't gush enough about how spectacular everything looked, the environments, the characters, just all of it so incredibly pretty. Now let's talk about the performances from the actors. Overall, everyone did a solid job. Scarlett Johansson, I thought, did a great job with the Major. Two really standout performances from Bato and Aramaki. They both fucking killed it. They brought their characters to life and just fucking stole the show every time they were on. So shout outs to them. If you're watching this, just know I really liked what you did in this movie. And if you want to come on the internet's best podcast, the official podcast, please just reach out to me on Twitter. Now, I should also let it be known that I'd never really harshly judge acting in a movie. I don't pay too much attention to it, except for Asa, Butter, Butt Cheeks, and Miss Peregrine's Home for Imaginary Dweebs. That was just the worst acting I'd ever seen, and it really stood out to me. So take my acting criticism with a grain of salt on this one, because maybe you won't find the characters did a great job, but I think most people will agree Bato and Aramaki just nailed it. Now on to my only real complaint about this movie, the plot. Now I'm not saying the plot was bad or anything, it was a decent plot, but it was very predictable and it wasn't exactly original. Now that's not a fair complaint that I have here, because I know the original Ghost in the Shell inspired a lot of modern sci-fi plots that we're used to, like The Matrix for example, and they wanted to stay true to the original, so they didn't have a whole lot of wiggle room here, but they did put their own little unique spin on it with the Major's history and where she comes from, which I thought was a nice touch. But the plot never really captures your attention. You don't really feel too bad when a character dies in the movie or some big thing is revealed, because you kind of already saw it coming. The villain is by far the blandest character in the movie, just your standard cookie cutter evil bro dude. Also, the parts in the movie that are supposed to elicit an emotional response or maybe even be thought-provoking really fall flat. You don't really care too much. And the plot twist, you can't really call it a plot twist, that's not really the wrong word, I don't think it's supposed to be a twist, but you don't really care. You know what's coming, you know what's going to happen. It's not anything that's going to make you tug on the shoulder of the person next to you. Oh, can you believe that shit just happened? Oh man, it just cleaned my asshole, I can't believe it. So a lot of the things that were in there that I think were meant to make the viewer take a step back and be like, damn, what is it to be human? What does it mean? Just doesn't really come across that way. But like I'm saying, none of this is me saying the plot is bad, just that it's predictable and it's not a great plot. But the action scenes, the visuals, and the characters really do make up for it, except for the villain, because the villain's just kind of shit. I really didn't like the villain. Another great thing about this movie was the soundtrack, and just the sound in general. Everything just sounded fucking cool, especially the soundtrack. That's something that really stood out to me, and will probably stand out to most people. They nailed it there. Overall, I feel like the movie was definitely worth seeing. Even if you haven't seen the original, I think most people will find that it was enjoyable for them to watch. It's nothing that you're going to remember 5 to 10 years from now and reflect on, but it's definitely a good movie to just go entertain yourself for 2 hours or so. It's just a fun movie to watch. I'm going to go ahead and put this movie at about a 70% on the moist meter. It's definitely got some moisture in there, quite a lot of moisture, but it's not dripping wet or anything, but you will definitely enjoy your time with the movie. So yeah, that's it. Stay moist or dry hard.
Initiating moisture.
Hi, and welcome to the latest installment in the Sodden Cinematic Universe. Today I'll be analyzing the Moistcr content in the new Thor movie called Thor Ragnarok. Full disclosure, I think the previous two Thor movies were stinky ass. I think they are by far the weakest in the MCU, but I still went into this movie with high expectations and wasn't let down. The movie trailers try to sell you that this is a different approach to a standard superhero action flick, and for the most part, they're right. This is a pretty different approach. It's a more comedic approach, a different visual style for the most part as well. And it is pretty different from most of the others until it gets to the end, then it kind of falls into cliches and what you'd expect, but it does it well enough where that's not a big complaint. This movie's about 80% great, 10% what we've seen a million times, and 100% reason to remember the name. It is a really fun movie to watch, especially when it comes to comedy. There was a lot of comic bits throughout this entire movie, and they did it surprisingly well. I've talked about this before, but I'm not one to laugh out loud during comedy movies or anything like that. Occasionally I'll blow a little light load out of my nose during a scene or something, but for the most part, I find modern comedy movies to be about as enjoyable as watching your beloved cat get run over by a fucking steamroller. However, this movie actually surprised me with how decently the comedy was executed here. I'm not saying I was laughing out loud, having a hoot and a holler the whole time, rolling down the aisle, pissing my trousers, laughing or anything like that. But it actually got me giggling quite a bit. There was one character they introduced here who's perhaps one of my favorite in the entire MCU, called Korg. I thought Korg was just so fucking great. He was a purely comic relief character who did comic relief really well. And the comedy wasn't the only surprisingly good element here. The visuals were a bit different to what you're accustomed to seeing in modern superhero movies, and really modern movies in general, since everything has this trend of trying to be super dark and gritty and shit. This movie was very colorful, and it had a different style than most other MCU movies, especially one that stood out to me is during a flashback where Valkyries had a showdown with the main antagonist. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The whole movie just looked really great and very different from most of the other ones, in my personal opinion. Now, the story isn't super strong, but it's not weak either. It's just predictable, and that's not a big complaint or anything. It's a fucking superhero movie. You can't expect it to reinvent the condom with some type of groundbreaking story. It's a very decent story, and it's told very well, and it's the first standalone MCU movie that I feel will have an actual impact on the MCU universe as a whole. Whereas other MCU standalone films like Iron Man 3 don't feel like they have any weight at all. You know, they have the main hero just go off on this side adventure that doesn't feel important. You know, he goes to the local diner where a madman selling chicken wings that are too spicy. The astoundingly high Scoville poses a threat to taste buds all over the world, overloading these taste buds. The hero stops him. Yippee, it was a fun adventure while it lasted. But it doesn't have any weight in that universe. This movie has a whole lot of shit that happens that I feel will have a huge impact on that universe, and it's fucking great. Now, the villain, I think, is a good villain. She didn't have a whole lot of screen time here to really develop, in my opinion, but she was played very well by Cate Blanchett, and I thought she was super cool. But they kind of shoehorned in an undead zombie army, which was kind of fucking lame, in my opinion. But overall, I think she could be a cool villain if we see her again and she's more fleshed out. And I might as well at least touch on it. Soundtrack's good. I never really have a whole lot to say about soundtrack unless it really wows me or really disappoints me and makes me feel bad about myself for even hearing that music. This movie ran that middle ground where it was good. It was, there was no complaints. It was fun to listen to. Let's go ahead and pop this shit into the moist meter here. I'm giving Thor Ragnarok an 85%. It was a genuinely fun movie to sit through. The entire audience loved it. All the comedy bits really hit pretty hard with the audience I was in, and it even got a little giggle out of me here and there. Korg had a one-liner that actually gave me a bit of a hoot, so that was a surprise since I don't typically laugh at movies like I said earlier. And the whole movie was just a fun ride to go on, and it felt like it had a real weight in the MCU. Easily the best Thor movie, while the previous two Thor movies just ate shithole. This movie pounded shithole with a lot of fun in there. That was meant as a compliment, but I realize saying shithole in a positive way doesn't exactly convey the idea of something being good. So just know, the last two movies ate shit. This movie was serving out shit, and it was good shit. I enjoyed it. That's it. See ya.
Initiating Moistcr protocol.
Hey ho, sup noobs, welcome to the Moist Meter, where we don't clan up. So I saw Ready Player One. Well, let's just fucking get into it. Visuals were outstanding. It had a really, really well done visual component. It was really fun to watch when it was in the game. They had a really incredible racing scene, and it was more than one racing scene, but all on the same map, and it was really great. I really thought that was the strongest part of the movie, but man, this shit is almost as bad, and it's up to Wade and his group of friends to win instead, so that way they can make the Oasis better than ever. I'll give you an example of some dialogue. If it's talking about the Oasis, it has to have gamer lingo, newbie, noob, scrub. Oh, it's all here, and it's just so painful. So painful. And really, just apart from the vomit-inducing, diarrhea-eliciting dialogue that's in this movie, the plot is just full of plot holes. But I guess that doesn't really matter all that much, because the focal point of this movie is the Oasis, and that universe is spectacular. I loved the Oasis, everything about it. Everything about the Oasis was just fantastic. And it's just a shame that the whole movie gets weighed down by the reality that... Let's go ahead and plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm going to give this a 60%. It would have definitely been lower had the Oasis not been as perfect as it is. I love the Oasis. I truly did. And it's a shame that they couldn't bring the rest of the movie up to that level. And by the rest of the movie, I mean just when they threw the real life stuff in there. God damn, it just was really poorly fucking done. But yeah, I mean, it's still a very visually appealing movie. And I think it's still an overall above average movie, clearly, which is why I gave it a 60. And yeah, that's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
The Boys is an Amazon show, brand new, and it's about superheroes, baby. And I'm totally fine with that. I know a lot of people like to pretend that they're above superhero movies. Oh, such juvenile enjoyment for simpletons. I would never sully my exquisite palate with superhero movies. Oh, disgusting. But then they still sneak out of the house late at night to go see the superhero movie to get their fix, scratching at their neck like a meth addict, because they're well-made movies, and superhero movies are good fun. Unless they're DC movies, then most of the time they're super shitty and you'd have more fun doing anything else. But aside from that, superhero movies are just generally enjoyable, and this show tries to take it in a different direction, albeit it's still not even like an original spin on the superhero genre. It's, what if the superheroes were assholes? What if they weren't infallible good guys? It's a realistic look at what would happen if superheroes existed in our world. And while it's not original in attempting that, it's definitely the best at its execution. It's really, really well done. And definitely the most realistic look at what would happen. The superheroes are egotistical humans. They've been told their whole lives that they're gods and goddesses. It's highly marketed. They're backed by a mega corporation Vought. Every move they make is calculated. They're there to make money. They are celebrities, icons. And that's kind of it. They're big, corrupt assholes, though, behind the scenes. And then a group of boys get together after a traumatic event, and they all try and hunt and take down superheroes to expose them for what they really are, assholes. And also brutally murder them, just fucking fist them as hard as they can. And it's really just so well done. I enjoy it start to finish. At first I thought it was just going to be like a dark comedy with edginess here, you know, oh, here comes some one-liners, blood, gore for the sake of blood and gore, shock for the sake of shock. And there's even a scene with like a failed dolphin rescue that just really kind of screamed edgy for the sake of edgy. But as the show keeps developing, all of this really works in its favor, and there's so much more to it than just edginess for the sake of edginess. All of it contributes to the overall the plot, the themes. It's just really fucking well done. I found myself caring about the majority of the characters. They're really well written in my opinion. I do think some of the dialogue kind of falls flat, like the dark comedy attempts. Carl Urban plays Billy Butcher in this show, who's kind of the leader of the group of boys. Kind of the mastermind, the brains behind all of it, the scrotum to the penis, that is the boys. And I do have to say, I think some of his lines are just kind of shit. It's like some of the things he says, I'm gonna rip your hands off to shove them so far up your ass that you'll wave at me through your mouth. I think that kind of shit just screams like something he read on Tumblr. Not Carl Urban, obviously, I don't think he improv'd it, but the writers. Just looks like something he would have read on Tumblr for like an incel getting upset about getting killed in a video game. So it doesn't always hit its mark when it comes to like intimidating, badass dialogue, the kind of shit you'd expect a man who eats nails for breakfast and then chugs motor oil. It doesn't really always come across sound and solid, because sometimes you get kind of embarrassing lines like that, but I'd say about 8 times out of 10, You're always rooting for Karl Urban and waiting to hear the next intimidating line he drops to someone, and you love to see the way he handles business. A lot of it does boil down to just Karl Urban being great as Billy Butcher. He fucking kills it in this role. Probably my favorite role I've seen him in since Dredd. Speaking of which, we need a Dredd 2. Karl, if you're watching this, keep lobbying hard for Dredd 2. I'm right behind you, man. I'll be sniffing your farts till the end of time to get Dredd 2 out there. If you haven't seen Dredd, check that shit out. Great movie. But anyway, back to The Boys. I really just love everything about it. Visually, it looks great. For a TV show with 8 episodes, it's really well produced. I can tell they had a pretty decent budget for this, because they made this shit look really nice, in my opinion. The CG moments aren't corny like in a lot of shits. I was kind of expecting to be like CW shit, where the Flash spins his arms and you get like little Microsoft Word fucking particle effects springing off of his fists. But here, the superpowers work really well, except A-Train sometimes. I thought that got a little goofy, but that might just be super speed. I think making super speed work in a movie is super hard, and the only one that succeeds is X-Men with Quicksilver. And the way they succeed is by just making everything else stop. So then he just moves at a normal pace, and I think that's a really clever way of handling it. But the X-Men movies are not very good, the modern ones. That's the only thing they really do right. Here, it does everything right, in my opinion. Occasional missing of the mark with dialogue and shit. Sometimes the decisions the characters make don't make sense, and especially towards the last couple of episodes, the decision making becomes really kind of fucking dumb. It suffers a little bit of anime syndrome in the last couple of episodes. What I mean by that is the anime cliche where a major character has a lot of information that they need to share with someone else or share with the group, and then for an inexplicable reason they decide not to, just for the sake of progressing the plot and keeping tensions high. You know, the classic, hey, Oni-san, why did you do this? What's going on? And then instead of saying why they did it and what's going on, they just turn their back and say, nothing. Nothing's going on. Even though if you just told them what was going on, things could have resolved right then and there. It's just, I don't like that. That's always frustrating to watch unfold, and you're always kind of rooting for the character to please just say the fucking information so everyone's on the same page, and we can go from there instead of having to work backwards, like showing a math problem how you got to the conclusion. I just don't like that. It's just, I feel like it's a little silly. But it's not very frequent in the show. Overall, I just find it to be super enjoyable. It shows you some uncomfortable shit. It shows you some brutal shit. It does get pretty dark. There's not always a happy ending, and I really enjoy that. As far as, you know, the dark, gritty take on superheroes goes, that's not new or original, but this does it the best by far. I enjoyed The Boys start to finish. And I'd also like to say Homelander in this show is basically the Superman, and he's pretty much the evil Superman, kind of what Injustice did, but 50 times better. Homelander in this show is fucking outstanding. A truly great character. Love every scene that Homelander's in. He just controls it. He just fucking grabs it by the tits and twists. He is really a great character. So plugging this shit into the Moist meter, I'm giving The Boys a fat 90%. I really recommend it. It's 8 episodes, just really good fun. It's not gonna be some thought-provoking piece, you know, going to bed in cold sweats like, man, that really spoke to my soul. But it's just so goddamn fun, and you really do root for the characters sometimes, and there's just a lot of fun shit it shows you with good fights, real bloody shit, doesn't shy away from dark themes. It's just, it does edginess well. I don't like using that word edginess, but it really does describe the show in a decent fashion. It's really just fucking good, though. I really enjoyed it. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Hello, let's address the elephant in the room right away. I'm not at my place. I'm at Tiana's place, which is why there's that poster that says Oana means family next to me. I'm not a huge Lilo and Stitch fan. But anyway, I just finished The Mandalorian and I wanted to talk about it. It's 8 episodes and 6 of them are very good. Episodes 4 and 5 are the only 2 blemishes on this record. It's a really good show and I really enjoyed the characters, but man, I cannot get that fucking sensation, that taste of just raw asshole out of my mouth from the 4th and 5th episode. But I guess that's kind of what to be expected when there's always different directors coming in for different episodes. But it's not that big of a deal. It's 8 episodes, and the only problem I have is that 2 of them are shitty fillers, which is episodes 4 and 5. And I can't really call them fillers because they do play a role at the end of the series. It's just, it was jarring to go from 3 episodes that are just absolutely great to then these 2 stinkers in the middle, and then finish strong, which I guess is the best you can hope for. But with 8 episodes, you'd expect all 8 to be pretty full throttle, really giving their best face. and 2 of them don't do that. That's the only complaint I have. I want to get that out of the way right now. I wanted to get that complaint on the table and move on to everything I liked about it. Like most people, I liked Baby Yoda. I'm extremely surprised there's not Baby Yoda merchandise that was out for Christmas, like fucking plushies and toilet paper and condoms or anything, just to capitalize on that hysteria of Baby Yoda, because everyone fell in love with him, as did I and Jackson. It's just a really fun character that does some really cool Force things and like some goofy moments, and it's just super adorable and super cute. And I like that it's not a CGI Baby Yoda, it's a puppet, and I think that's really special. I always appreciate things like that, and I think that's why you can get so attached to him and just love him so much that you yourself could see yourself going to war to protect him. I also really like Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian, the headlining Mandalorian. I think he does a great job. I do think the show in the beginning doesn't do a good job of showing you how powerful he is or how strong he is, because he gets his ass beat like 15 times in the first 5 episodes. At no point does he ever really show like, I am an elite warrior. He's constantly needing help from Baby Yoda. He couldn't even fight these fucking blurg, which are just inflated boomers from Left 4 Dead that walk on all 4. He couldn't fight them, so he needed help from a Deus Ex Machina who comes out of nowhere to save him, and then they become friends, and that character ends up being really important and really cool. But what I'm saying is, he didn't strike me immediately as, wow, this dude's fucking hardcore. He struck me as, wow, this dude's getting really lucky. And that doesn't change until about the 6th episode. There are great moments that he has where he, pops off and shit. But in the 6th episode is when he really shines, and you get to see what kind of incredible hunter he is. And that's when it really is at its strongest. The 6th, 7th, and 8th episode, I think, are the best in the entire series. The first 3 were also really strong, but I think the last 3 really bring it home and do it great justice, and really makes me optimistic about the future of the show. And I really love just about everything they pulled off. Even in the filler, the 4 and 5, I like the planets. I liked the new environments that they were showing us. They just weren't recycling the same Star Wars shit you've seen 1,000 times. Oh, we're going to Tatooine. This is the birthplace of Luke. And here's where Anakin took a shit when he was 10 years old in The Phantom Menace. You guys remember that? I like how they kept exploring different areas and showing you different things, and I like showing the entire Mandalore culture. Even though them hiding in the sewers I thought was kind of underwhelming. They're supposed to be like this super hidden covert place, not even sure if they still exist, and yet you can see Pedro Pascal go into the sewer by just going down like 2 sets of stairs, and then he's in their like super secret hideout in the middle of the fucking city. I feel like someone could have wandered down there by accident and discovered all of the Mandalorians down there. So it wasn't really well hidden, but I liked seeing all of them. I liked the main forger. She was really cool, and especially at the end when she has her moment of just badassery. The whole show just does a great job, and it makes you bond with the characters, between the relationship between Baby Yoda and Pedro Pascal's bounty hunter, the Mandalorian. It's just a really well shot, well made narrative, and it's really fun to watch. There's a ton of action. There's also a ton of just pretty powerful moments, I'd say. It makes you care about even droids, these hunks of metal. They, hype them up as just completely evil, devoid of emotion, but by the end there's a droid that you start to care about and bond with, and you don't want to see leave the party or do anything. You want to see them all together always, which is cute. It's a show that kind of, like this thing says, it's a little bit about family. A little family forms, and it's just really enjoyable, which I didn't expect. With Star Wars being as messy of a franchise as it is, you don't really expect too much from it these days, or at least I don't. But it's really been kind of crushing it with Jedi Fallen Order and now Mandalorian. Makes me optimistic for more Star Wars shit. The cinematic universe, I think, is trashed because of Rise of the Skywalker, but fuck that. I'll save that for a different day. I've already done a Moistcr on that. But going forward, I like where they're heading with the Mandalorian and other extended universe stuff, which is great. Plugging the Mandalorian into the Moistcr, giving it a fat 80%. I think if they could have had a stronger middle section without 4 and 5 being as out of place and jarringly different in a bad way, it could have been a higher moist counter, a higher wetness. But when you have 8 episodes, 2 of them can't be as bad as the 4th and 5th one were. I'm glad that they at least brought those characters back in, because they introduced some good characters, which is nice, but the episodes themselves just were not very good. But the show overall, I think, is absolutely great, and it does live up to the hype that Twitter goes crazy for, and that's about it. So yeah.
This episode was brought to you by Helix.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at The Boys Season 2. Most of you know I fucking love the first season of The Boys. That shit absolutely slapped, so I was really excited for Season 2. And I have to say, it's not as strong as the first season, but it's still very good. Most of the characters are still really fucking great and well written, especially William Butcher. Butcher is still my favorite character in this show. Absolutely fucking love Carl Urban. Carl Urban is my favorite superhero. Like the real world Carl Urban, the actor, he's my favorite superhero. Hopefully we'll see Dredd 2 one day. Love you, Carl, if you're watching. And in Season 2, Butcher is still just as much of like this boogeyman badass who even superheroes come to fear and respect. But you also see a totally different side of him where he has a lot more depth emotionally as a character, I think. As the season progresses, you get to see a lot of different shit from him. And it's not something just totally out of left field where all of a sudden Butcher's like the nicest guy in the world buying Girl Scout cookies and breastfeeding babies at a hospital. It's a very natural progression of his character, and I think it's really well done over the course of the season. I just really like to see Butcher develop like that. It was just really good. I definitely think Butcher was the star of this season. In the first season, the huge standout was Homelander, with an incredible performance from Anthony Starr. Homelander was just one of the coolest villains I've seen. In Season 2, he really takes a step down. He didn't really have that central role anymore. He was kind of reduced to like this sniveling Looney Tunes villain who just keeps getting used by everybody and can't really get anything right. He's constantly outsmarted. He's just not the same diabolical, evil mastermind genius from the Season 1. He's just kind of like this jacked guy at the gym who no one's really showing any respect to anymore. People constantly stand up to him in this season with no repercussions. He just like gets stood up to and then he like cowers away into his shell and then leaves, really. I just can't even really think of any moments in Season 2 where I was like, damn, that's Homelander. That's Homelander from Season 1 right there. Because it really didn't feel like it. He played more of a backseat to some of the newer villains they introduced. And I like the newer villains. I think they were very decent. But they're no Homelander. Homelander in Season 1 was something real special, and to see him kind of fall into what happened in Season 2, it just doesn't really make sense, because he was the king in Season 1. He felt he was God and above everyone else, but in Season 2, he feels like he's like the fucking court jester. He's just not at that same level of, you know, larger than life, the real fucking deal. I don't know, I felt really underwhelmed by Homelander's progression as a character in Season 2, and I get it was probably just to put more of the light on the other villains, which is okay, because they are good villains, but I would have at least liked it to stay a little more true to what they built up with Season 1's Homelander, where he still, when he comes on screen, everyone in the fucking room is visibly uneasy and intimidated. Only a couple times in this season was there anything even remotely like that. It's still a great performance from Anthony Starr's Homelander. It's just I would have liked to see him not kind of play more of a backseat and just get used. He gets absolutely fucking trampled like a doormat in this season by a bunch of different people. And other than that, I don't have too many complaints other than like a few plot holes here and there. Like there's a scene where one of the boys gets injured and has to go to a hospital for a couple days. Well, they're the most wanted people in the entire fucking world. What kind of hospital is going to treat him and let him stay overnight for a few days without reporting it to the authorities? Their faces are everywhere, on every milk carton, on every billboard. Walking into the hospital, there's probably like a news blast playing with their faces on it, and yet somehow they're able to just get hospital treatment for a few days with no problems. There's simple plot holes like that, which aren't the biggest deal. It's a bit nitpicky. But overall, it's still very good. I know I've kind of harped on the Homelander thing, and that's just more of me being a little disappointed with him kind of, you know, just playing that backseat role. But the season is still great. In fact, I really like a lot of the plot twist this season introduces and a lot of the new characters they bring into the fold, because it's keeping things constantly fresh, and you're seeing a big overarching universe with a lot of moving parts where, you know, Vought's not the only evil corporation out there. There's a lot of other, you know, very sketchy things going on behind the scenes with a lot of other people that aren't superheroes that are doing some real fucking wild shit. And of course, the gruesome gore is still intact in Season 2. Now there's a character that's blowing heads up, just popping heads like fucking balloons. There's another character that just closes their hand and someone just completely fucking combusts. So there's still a lot of gore and a lot of fight scenes and a lot of good action that you get to see in Season 2 that I think is executed pretty well. And the last two episodes I really thought were very strong, starting with the end of the second to last episode and then the finale. I think both of them set up a really interesting world going forward for Season 3, if there is a Season 3. it's just something I'm really looking forward to. I've really enjoyed the narrative a lot, and I find myself getting pretty invested in the universe and most of the characters. So yeah, I mean, overall, I definitely think The Boys Season 2 is still very strong, just not quite as strong as the first season in a few different areas. Anyway, plugging Season 2 of The Boys into the Moist Meter, I'm still going to give it a 90% because I do still think it's something extremely entertaining, but there are certain moments where you might roll your eyes at some of the things that develop over the course of the season, and there is some things like if you're already a fan of Homelander, you'd be like, well, why the fuck is Homelander all of a sudden afraid of his own shadow? You know, like it's fucking Homelander. But overall, it's still really fucking good. It seems more and more often people fail to understand the importance of a quality mattress, and that's why I'm here to talk about Helix mattresses. For a while, I used to have a little morning back pain, and it wasn't until I started to really analyze the mattress that I started to get the sneaking suspicion that maybe the mattress just wasn't right for my back. As a 5'6" man, it's hard to find mattresses to fit that hulking body size. But then eventually I came across Helix mattresses, and I've only had Helix for like 2 weeks, and so far I've absolutely loved it. I haven't had that back pain in the morning, and I think one of the main reasons is because Helix has this little like quiz that you take to match a mattress to your unique body type and sleep preference, so you get like the perfect mattress for your needs. And it's really worked for me so far, so I do highly recommend Helix, and they get delivered to your door for free, and it's easy to set up. It's just no hassle, and yeah, just I really enjoy it so far. So if you want a new mattress or are interested in trying it, Helix mattresses have a 100-night sleep trial, so if you're not feeling it after 100 days, you could just send it back and you get all your money back. So if you're interested in a Helix mattress, you can go to helixsleep.com/moist to get up to $200 off your Helix mattress. That's helixsleep.com/moist for up to $200 off the mattress. That's it. So yeah.
Moist Meter was brought to you by Amazon Music. Sign up for free below using our referral code.
Initiating moisture.
In 2016, a plague swept through movie theaters. A movie so shitty that it nearly killed superheroes for anyone with good taste. And by killing superheroes, I mean killing DC superheroes. I'm talking about Suicide Squad. The first Suicide Squad, I think, is the worst superhero movie to come out in the last 15 years at least. So the new one had some big shoes to fill. And I'm happy to say it's actually really good. It's a very good movie. James Gunn somehow was able to bring the worst superhero movie and make it a very good one. I don't think it's the best or anything, but I really thoroughly enjoyed it. They took characters I'd never heard of and characters I would have come up with as a joke and made them cool. Like Polka Dot Man, a guy who shoots polka dots. That's like some shit I think of for useless superpowers. Like, what did I call him? Not Stinkler, but I had a superhero who could smell the future. Which is a pretty worthless power, but I feel like if I gave that to James Gunn and told him to put it in Suicide Squad 2, he would have made it fucking awesome. I also still had that cool idea of an old lady who every time she gets like to the point of death, like in her late 80s, 90s or something like that, she births herself like a clone of herself with all of her memories. James Gunn, please feel free to use any of these characters in the upcoming Suicide Squad sequel if you're making another one. But the point is, he took characters that have dumb powers like Polka Dot Man and made them very interesting. Not only as characters, but also made their powers cool to watch. So I really enjoyed these characters and seeing them interact with each other. The chemistry between all of them was significantly better than the first one. They're much more likable and they're much more entertaining. The writing is much better. Like, the jokes land. And like the actual physical comedy of some of the fights works. It's everything the first one could have been. It's done very well. And the action scenes, they're brutal, they're goofy, and the whole movie pretty much knows not to take itself too seriously. That's not to say that there aren't emotional moments. There definitely are emotional beats in the movie, and I think when they're there, they're good. I don't think they're that, compelling, but for what the movie is, I think when it tries to make you feel something for a character, it accomplishes that goal. My favorite character is the street shark. I think the shark guy in the Nawe is really fucking cool. He's just a shark. He doesn't have any friends, and he starts to make some friends. It's just, I don't know, it worked for me. I thought it was good. I also really love the style of editing in this movie. Like, for example, one of Harley Quinn's best scene, in fact, probably one of the best scenes in the movie, is a really long action scene with Harley Quinn just fucking taking down hordes of bad guys. And throughout it, the choreography's good, the action's good, but it'll have these moments where she's fucking akimboing assault rifles with, like, animated flowers pouring out of the back of them, and then like little birds flying around that are animated. I don't really have too many complaints about the movie. That's not to say it's perfect or anything, but one thing that did stand out to me is I felt like at points James Gunn introduced so many characters and didn't use half of them, especially early on in the film. I understand that some characters are brought in just as throwaways, and in this movie just for jokes, but it still would have been nice to at least see a moment or two with some of the characters doing something, really anything. But that's just more of a personal preference. I don't think it's a detriment to the movie, since they are there as a punchline sometimes, and sometimes the death of a character is actually used as a fucking joke. So I get that, but I still think it would have been nice to see some of the characters have at least one moment before they're sent away to the fucking Shadow Realm. And that's not exclusive to just throwaway characters that were there for like a one-off joke. Some of the core characters of the Suicide Squad, like the actual cast that goes on the adventure and makes shit happen, there's two characters I feel that did nothing. They didn't really contribute to the overall goal. They were just kind of there. Like, if they weren't there, it would have played out exactly the same. So that was a little disappointing. I still think they were good characters, and them being there added to the movie, but, like, thinking about it narratively, they didn't do anything. They didn't have any moments of importance, though I did still enjoy their presence. I'll mention what two characters I'm talking about right after I give the score, so there will be a bit of spoilers after the score. But for now, let me just go ahead and tell you, I'm giving Suicide Squad, the new Suicide Squad, the good Suicide Squad, a 90%. I really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot to like about it. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of good jokes. Not that that's something entirely unique to superhero movies, but it does it really well, I thought. It was an enjoyable 2 hours and 12 minutes spent watching this. Now into the spoilers to explain more what I meant. So, I unfortunately think King Shark didn't do anything, and I also don't think Polka Dot Man did anything. Their presence there was fun for the team, and I think they added a human element to the chemistry, but it also would have happened without them too, I think. So the relationship between Ratcatcher and Bloodsport, I feel, was already developing before Polka Dot Man and King Shark. So what really kind of happened is Ratcatcher noticed King Shark doesn't have friends. King Shark tries to eat her, and she's like, hey, well, why don't we just all be friends? And that kind of like plants the seed that, oh, this is going to be kind of like a group of friends. But I feel like that was already going to happen because Ratcatcher was just such a likable character and already talking to everyone else. So I just don't think King Shark did anything. Of course, he had some good kills. He ate some people, which is cool. But those people were going to die to the other members anyway because everyone in this movie is just a giant fucking meat balloon to be popped by the main characters. So King Shark killing a couple of them, not even many. I think he only has like 5 kills total. It didn't really do much to add to it, and he didn't really contribute to their plans. When the big bad supervillain alien's introduced, he kind of just nibbles on the arm a little bit before being thrown away. He plants one explosive, which is helpful, but it's not like that made or break the mission. And then for Polka Dot Man, he just actually does nothing. He has 2 confirmed kills, but his polka dots were cool, so he fires them at a structure. The structure falls and the guys fall. I don't think they died. Well, they might have. But then he actually vaporizes 2 people with his polka dots, and that's it. After that, all he really does is bring this element of goofiness, how he pictures everyone as his mother. I think that's enjoyably comedic. But he doesn't really do anything narratively to push it forward or help with the overall goal. He's just kind of along for the ride and having fun. And he reminds the crew about Milton and Milton's death, which again was just another joke. So it's not like he really had a moment. Yes, during the climactic boss fight, he like shoots the leg off, but that didn't do much because it just gets the leg back before he gets taken out. So I don't know, I just felt like they could have done a little bit more with those two to just give them a moment of importance to the film. I enjoyed them, of course, I think they were great, but it would have been nice to see them actually contribute heavily to the goal, because every other character does. Every other character you see is pivotal to pushing it forward and reaching its conclusion, but those two are just more along for the ride and for the comedic relief and fun for the audience, and I think they accomplished that goal, but I just started to really care for the characters, so I would have liked to see them have something impactful happen. So that's really about it. It's a good movie. I recommend it. That's about it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Thor movie, Love and Thunder. This is again directed by Taika Waititi, who directed the previous Thor movie, Ragnarok, which I absolutely loved. I had a lot of fun watching that movie. However, unlike Ragnarok, I didn't absolutely love this one, and I didn't have that much fun watching it. Watch out, wild opinion coming out of nowhere to catch you off guard. Bet you didn't expect that shit coming in so hard and so fast. The god of surprises. But yeah. Anyway, I was unfortunately let down with this film since I was a big fan of Ragnarok. I had high expectations going into this one, but walked away a bit disappointed. It's not a bad movie by any means. I don't want anyone to get that twisted. I'm not saying this movie's trash or dog shit or anything like that. But it just felt like it was trying so hard to be like Ragnarok, where it leans really heavy on comedy, that it almost became like a bootleg or like a parody of itself. You know, none of the jokes were really landing. In Ragnarok, I had a lot of giggles and genuine belly laughs throughout the film. In this movie, I didn't laugh once. The jokes just weren't landing. I felt like Ebenezer Scrooge just sitting there fucking stone-faced. Now, I know it sounds a little weird focusing so heavy on criticizing the comedy of this film, but that's really what this whole movie is. It's fundamentally a Marvel Universe rom-com, and they would not stop making jokes. This was a movie that didn't take its own plot seriously. Ragnarok had a problem where even like the most serious moments were undercut with jokes here and there. This whole movie, everything is undercut with jokes, top to bottom. It doesn't fucking stop. So if the movie doesn't care about its plot, why the fuck are the audience supposed to care about it? It just doesn't work. The big standout for this film was Gore. Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher was fantastic. Actually a really cool villain. All the scenes he was in, all like 4 of them, he was barely in the movie, but every time he was on screen, he was good. Like, he was the best part of this movie by far. Everything else just kind of falls flat because at every step of the way, they're just joking the whole time. There are a few serious moments, but they only last like a split second before Korg will come in and make a quip or something like that. It just doesn't stop. It is basically just a comedy movie with some action in there. The action is good, especially a fight between the main cast and Gore on like a small little planet. It has like this black and white filter to it almost, and it's really cool. It's really well done. But outside of like the action and anything involving Gore, it's just underwhelming. And again, it wasn't just me that wasn't laughing during the film. I was in a full crowded theater, and pretty much no one was busting a gut laughing or slapping their knee having a hoot and a holler. Very rarely did anyone like laugh during this film. The dude behind me even audibly sighed very loud, which is pretty douchey, but sighed when Korg made his millionth quip of the film. Korg was one of my favorite parts of Ragnarok. Every time he spoke, it was entertaining. In this movie, he's like a core character and never stops making jokes. He's like a fucking Reddit user trying to farm karma. And one of Jackson's friends even called this movie Reddit the Movie, and it's pretty accurate. Again, the focal point of this movie is its comedy, which is why I'm talking about it so much. That is the main meat and potatoes here, and it didn't do it very well. And especially not compared to how they did it in Ragnarok. But now moving on to like the actual narrative here, it's definitely not bad, but it's not great. It's not an amazing plot by any means, but it's certainly serviceable. But there are so many plot conveniences that it starts to take you out. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but so many things happen in this movie where it's like, wow, what a coincidence. That's super lucky. Oh, wow, that timing couldn't have been better. Oh, the meeting of the gods is today? Oh, wow, okay, good. I guess that's just when we needed it. Like, there's just certain moments that feel like it's almost a Saturday morning cartoon level of, oh, that's convenient. Like, it doesn't feel earned half the time. Like, it's hard to talk about without spoilers, but one thing they can do in this film is they can be pretty much anywhere in the universe whenever they want to be, thanks to, of course, like the Bifrost. But even when they're not using the Bifrost, and there's some time where they don't have the Bifrost, when they don't have the Bifrost, they can still be anywhere in the universe exactly when they want to be. They can just instantly be there, even without the Bifrost for some reason, somehow. So there's never any, like, stakes when it comes to tracking down Gore once they know where he is. It's never, like, a tough journey to get there because they can just instantly appear there somehow, even when the Bifrost wasn't available. It's just, I don't know, there's a lot of moments here that just don't really work super well from a narrative perspective, but I like the overall plot. You know, I actually like the relationship between Thor and Jane. I think they did a decent enough job of making us care about the two of them. You know, Jane is now a Thor. she's been chosen by Thor's ex-Hammer, and they haven't seen each other in a long time, so it's all about like rekindling that relationship, and I think they actually handle it pretty well. And Jane's pretty good as Thor. I think she does a great job. She's fun to watch in the action scenes, and it's just pretty badass, anything that involves action. The visuals were really good. I mean, as you would expect, it's Marvel, but I actually really liked it because it was such a heavy emphasis on like space shit, which I'm always a sucker for. So they even have like a fucking boat that's shooting out like a rainbow road with the Bifrost that's being pulled by some goats, and it's cool. It's cool to look at. There's a lot of cool moments, but just know those cool moments are going to be soon behind you when they're interrupted with yet another joke that falls flat for the millionth fucking time in the film. I'd like to stress again, this isn't a shitty movie. This isn't some dumpster fire of a film, but it is absolutely carried by its visuals, its action, and its villain. But the action, visuals, and villain are pretty goddamn good. And like I said, I do like the relationship between Thor and Jane. I actually thought they did a great job with that, especially since most of the heavy lifting with that relationship had to be done in this movie. Because prior to Love and Thunder, the two of them didn't really have a whole lot going on together. I never really thought that they had a great, like, well-built relationship, so this movie had to do a lot to make you actually give a fuck about that, and I think it did a decent enough job at that. Plugging Thor Love and Thunder into the Moist meter, I'm giving it a 65%. I don't think it's a bad movie or anything like that. I think there's some good moments, but overall, it's just almost like a rom-com Marvel movie where a lot of it just takes the wind out of its own sails by just making unstoppable, unrelenting amounts of jokes, most of which don't really land. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at The Boys Season 3, and it's another banger. This show doesn't miss. Every season is getting better. Like, it's a show that started out amazing and has only gotten better. So right away, Season 3 kicks off with one of the wildest episodes in television history. This is a minor spoiler, I suppose, but it's all within the first 10 minutes of Episode 1. So they're hunting down a bad soup with the power to shrink, and he uses that power for sounding. If you don't know what sounding is, God bless your soul, I suppose. It's putting things into your dick hole. So he shrinks himself down to a very small level and then crawls inside of a guy's penis and gives him a urethra massage. But he had just snorted coke beforehand, and he sneezes and then expands back to normal size and splits him in half, instantly killing him, sending blood and guts flying all over the place. That shit was so wacky. I would have never expected I'd watch a show where someone's exploring a wiener as if it's like a cave in Indiana Jones or something. It was so unhinged, but it works really well in the show. Like, it was fun to watch. Like, the entire season went really hard. A lot happened, and I think every episode was great. The only one that was a bit underwhelming was, unfortunately, the finale, which I just watched. I know a lot of people were pretty disappointed with it, and I'll also admit I was a little let down. It's not bad by any means, but every episode this entire season kept ramping up and setting up huge stakes and huge things coming, and then the finale kind of under-delivers on a lot of it, but it puts a lot of pieces in place for next season that I think is going to be outstanding. So I really like where it leaves off, though the final fights as well as some of the later moments just didn't have that same oomph you would expect. And there wasn't even a single time where they went back inside of a cock, which was a little upsetting. Like, you know, they really struck gold in episode 1. Now let's break it down a little bit. I'm, again, going to avoid as many spoilers as possible. This season introduces a new villain, so it's not just Homelander now. They bring Soldier Boy back into the fold, who was basically the original Homelander. He was the face of Vought, and just like the most popular and the strongest superhero in the world, and everyone thought he was dead. However, he's not. He was captured and tortured by the Russians, and the boys inadvertently release him again, so he becomes the main big bad, and it's really good. Soldier Boy is a super interesting character. He's not like as good of a villain as Homelander by any means, because Anthony Starr is one of the most talented actors I've ever seen. Anthony Starr as Homelander is probably the best villain I've ever watched on screen, and I don't say that lightly. But I now cannot even look at Anthony Starr without seeing Homelander. I watched a fucking interview with him in the cast one time, and I just saw Homelander. I thought at any moment he'd turn around and take someone's eyes out of their skull or something if he didn't like one of their jokes. Like, he has truly become Homelander to me, which has never really happened for any other character, so massive props, and he does a great job this season as well, of course. In this season, Homelander's more than just like this over-the-top evil villain. They actually show a lot of human sides here, even more so than previous seasons. They really like do a lot of like heavy lifting to make you almost feel for him and question whether or not like his real motive. Because before all this, you'd be like, yeah, he's pretending to be nice or pretending to be on someone's side, but he's actually going to do something evil. Whereas here it's like, well, no, he might actually care about Ryan, or he might actually value Black Noir as a teammate and a friend. You know, it's just so good. But anyway, back to Soldier Boy. He's where you're going to spend a lot of the time, like seeing him do shit and learning about him. He's got a very interesting past, and his main objective is, of course, to get revenge for being captured. So he's wreaking havoc, and it just becomes another massive problem for the crew to try and navigate. The writing in this show, I think, is just superb. I think it's so good. They do a great job of making you care about most of the characters, as well as just setting up a really interesting story with a lot of moving parts to it. And it always does try and, like, turn a mirror to, like, the real world, so it'll criticize a lot of things that happen in, like, actual society. And I hate using that word. The Joker's really ruined that word, but like, there's a lot of moments throughout The Boys where it's poking fun at things in the real world, and whether or not you appreciate that or not, that's entirely up to you. But I always find it at least interesting that they subtly jab at like all sides of things. I think they do a decent job of not being super on the nose while also still making it pretty comical. But where I think they absolutely excel is in the characters. I think Butcher is such a fucking great character where sometimes you're pumping your fist like, yeah, go Butcher, rip his fucking tits off and shove him in his asshole, let's go Butcher, that's so cool. And then the other minute you're like, damn, fuck you Butcher, this is all your fault, you're such a piece of shit. Like, they have such a great line with Butcher where he's awesome sometimes, you know, he's doing the right thing, and then other times he's really crossed the line and you as a viewer are like, damn, that's too far. And a lot of things that happen afterwards are completely because you're an asshole. You caused a lot of bad stuff because you're an asshole. Like, even though your intentions are good overall, you went too far and you made things worse. I love what they do with Butcher, and I really loved what they did with Butcher and Huey this season because they gave them access to powers. Not a spoiler, it's in the promo material. They gave them access to superpowers, and I think that works so well here. Now it just gives this entire crew more options for handling the problems. So you have people that don't have powers in the crew that are coming up with schemes and plans that are more in the shadows and more, like, deeper, I suppose. Like, they have to be careful about their moves, whereas with Butcher and Huey, now that they have access to powers, their plans more become, let's just go beat the shit out of these superheroes, get the answers we need, and just start ripping scalps off. And I actually think that's super cool. And it feels earned, because we've spent so much time with these characters, constantly having the odds against them, not being able to actually fight on even footing with the people they try and hunt down or the people they try and save. Now they do have access to powers, and it lets them directly get involved in these fights and just really in the mega mix of things here, and I like that a lot. I really did. I really appreciated that. And it didn't like overstay its welcome where it just became like superheroes fighting each other. They still had to outsmart, outmaneuver, and come up with good plans, but I like that they now have the ability to directly confront their most vicious villains. You know, like, they actually fight Homelander, and they don't just get, like, insta-gibbed like it's Team Fortress 2, they actually can put up a fight now because they have the access to the powers. And I thought that just felt great. I think that was just such a nice payoff to see them actually get to that point to be able to fight. Another standout character this season was Maeve. Maeve had so much to do this season and did a lot of cool shit. Maeve was integral to this season's plot. Like, without her, a lot of things just don't happen, and I thought she was great. Just really shined this entire season. Starlight as well, but on Starlight's side of things, it was mainly her use of social media, which isn't super cool, but when she was, like, not just Instagram living information and, like, actually contributing to fights and shit, she was great. Like, in the relationship between Starlight and Huey, of course, again, gets like really strained because of difference in, without getting into spoiler, just like a difference of opinion on how to handle Homelander and Soldier Boy. The relationship, of course, is well written. Like, I actually care about their relationship. I feel sad when they're not happy together, as goofy as that is to say. I don't know, I just really like everything about the boys. I love the way that they've crafted the narrative. I love the characters. They even do a lot with A-Train this season, showing like the family side of things, as well as him wanting to do good but just not being able to. He's so disconnected from like the reality of things. He can't quite figure out how to do things properly, so every time he tries to help, he makes everything much worse, and it's sad. Like, the Deep is just, again, a goofy comic relief character. They don't do much to make you like the Deep. All he does this season is fuck octopus pussy a lot. Like, he just gets multiple blowjobs from octopi. Like, that's mainly his contribution. Like, he's just a dumb character. He's supposed to be laughed at, and he does that successfully. Now, there are a couple things I do want to bring up that aren't, like, amazing with the show. I think that they're using Compound V and V alternatives really, like, excessively. It seems like they're selling Compound V at gas stations at this point. Anytime they needed Compound V, it was just like a brisk walk down the street away to go grab it. It was never a challenge. Like, there was never a moment in this entire season where they're like, damn, we need more V. If only we could go get it. It's always like, we need more V. I'll just go get it. Like, it was never a big obstacle. In the beginning, they set it up like it was really hard to get. Like, this is coveted, sacred serum that, you know, there's not much of it in the world and it's super guarded, hard to come by. Whereas here, it's like, yeah, I've got like 15,000 pounds worth just in my garage. It just, I don't know. I felt like that was a little excessive how often they could rely on it. And they used the V a lot here. And they had to keep going to Vought Labs to get the V. And it was really easy. It seems like all you have to do to get Compound V is just knock on the door and ask for it. So I thought that was a little lazy, though I understand why they didn't want to spend too much time focusing on how they acquire it, because that's not super interesting. But you set it up as this crazy compound that's really hard and really secretive. Like, you can't just make it super plentiful all of a sudden. And not to bring up the first episode too many times, but that shrinking guy, I actually do think could have been the strongest character in the show. This goes into, like, the Ant-Man and the Thanos' butthole thing. Unironically, after seeing it in this episode, I genuinely think that would probably kill Homelander and pretty much any superhero in the show. If the shrinking guy just went inside their cock or butt and then just fully expanded again, I can't imagine, like, I don't see how the character survives that. Like, even if they're so powerful, like, if he goes inside Homelander's ass and tries to, like, go back to normal size to blow him up, even if Homelander's body is so strong it, like, kills him inside of him, he's just gonna, like, internally drown from all the blood and guts from the shrinking man exploding inside of him. Like, I just don't see how any character survives that. So I actually think that could be the strongest character in the entire Boys franchise. Just wanted to bring that up. But anyway, plugging the Boys Season 3 into the Moist meter, I'm giving it a nice 90%. I would have given it a 95%, but like I said, I do think the finale is a little underwhelming. They set everything up to be absolutely huge to finish it off, and it just really wasn't. Without getting into spoilers, I can't really explain where things start to get a little messy in the finale, but they just make it a little underwhelming. I love where it ends up. I love the final conclusion, where everyone is and everything that's happening to them, I think is fantastic. But, like, everything getting there is kind of lackluster, which is a real shame, because I really thought they were going to send us into Season 4 with, like, this fucking wild bang, and it just didn't quite pull it off. It was just a little weak. But other than that, it's another outstanding season. The Boys is still absolutely crushing it, and I can't wait for Season 4. That's about it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Break out the popcorn and get ready to change your diaper. It's Moist Meter time, and we're looking at House of the Dragon. This follows the remarkable disappointment of Game of Thrones Season 8, the most disastrous season ever broadcast of any show ever created. It single-handedly killed the cultural relevancy of Game of Thrones, which for about 7 years was the most popular show ever broadcast. And now no one talks about it, no one remembers it fondly because of how awful Season 8 was. And this show couldn't have been worse than season 8 under any circumstances. If all of the episodes of House of the Dragon were just Two Girls, One Cup on loop for an hour, it would still be better than season 8 of Game of Thrones. So this whole franchise had nowhere to go but up, and I'm happy to say House of the Dragon is actually good. I expected it to just kind of be a throwaway, maybe a bit messy, convoluted, and even follow in similar footsteps of maybe Game of Thrones Season 7, which already showed signs of bad writing. I thought House of the Dragon would just go whole hog bad writing right off rip, but it didn't. I actually enjoyed it far more than I expected to. I don't think it's perfect by any means. I have quite a few complaints that I'll of course highlight in this review, but overall, I was pleasantly surprised. I did enjoy pretty much every episode here. There's ups and downs, of course, but on the whole, I actually thought they did a really decent job with this. So let me go ahead and talk about the things I like. Of course, with a show this high profile and this high budget, you're expecting great visuals, and you get them, obviously. Apart from a couple of moments on Dragonback where I was like, damn, I can't see anything but CGI here. It looks a little goofy. But that only happens like twice throughout the entire show, with like a couple of silly scenes that kind of stood out. But overall, the visuals are absolutely amazing, and I actually think they look better than Rings of Power, which was a $1 billion show. I think the visuals in House of the Dragon were actually at times better than Rings of Power. So I take that for what you will. I just really thought they did a great job world building in a world we're already somewhat familiar with. It's in the universe that we all know if you've watched Game of Thrones or read the books, but it still felt like unfamiliar. I didn't know exactly how things would play out. These are characters I don't know, but it's bloodlines that I'm familiar with. So for me, this didn't fall flat like some other prequels do, where you know where things ultimately end up, so the journey there is kind of meaningless since you already know the conclusion. Here, I don't know where it's going or where it's going to stop or where it's leading, because it takes place so far before Game of Thrones that I'm just in uncharted waters here. It's exploring a very interesting past, and I think they've done a great job with setting all of that up and getting all of the pieces in place. Now, it is pretty slow-paced. I think most people know that. The show is a bit of a slow burn at times. There's not a ton of, full throttle action with, skulls flying all over the place, people's eyes being popped out of their socket, ripping guts out of buttholes or anything crazy like that. There are, of course, those moments. They're used sparingly throughout the season. But when they're there, I think they hit pretty hard, and I think they really elevate the tension and the stakes of the show. So I really appreciate pretty much every direction they went here, except for one. They put so many time jumps in here, it's crazy. I think there's 4 or 5 time jumps. So you'll have a time jump of like 10 years, 4 years, couple years. I mean, it could be a time jump of a week. Like, it's just constantly shifting throughout time. So one episode, you'll have Rhaenyra and Alicent, and they're young, they're like 15. And then the next episode, they're like fucking mid-30s. Alicent's got 2 kids, and Rhaenyra's pregnant, and everyone's pregnant all the time. Every single episode of this show has someone pregnant, or a new pregnancy being announced, or a new baby on the way. Between the time jumps and pregnancies, my god, like we entered into some kind of alternate dimension where every time a woman even looks at a man, she's immediately pregnant. It is crazy how often people are pregnant here. But back to the time jump, it creates a problem where it's hard to like really get to know a character, because in one episode you feel like you have a pretty decent handle on where they are in the show, like their personality and like their mentality and the decisions they might make. But then the next episode, there's a huge gap of years. So this is like now a completely different person in a different place in their life. So you have to like relearn about them. You can't follow them through like this natural progression of like, aging, learning, and growing. So now everything you knew about this character in the last episode doesn't really apply anymore because so much time has passed. So it makes it just a little bit difficult when some big decisions get made. It feels like it almost comes out of left field sometimes, and it's just because so much time has passed, so you don't understand how they'd arrive at these big decisions and these big conclusions. And another thing that stood out to me is the only people that age up during these time jumps are Rhaenyra and Alicent and King Viserys. King Viserys just keeps aging until he looks like a goddamn reborn zombie, like a fucking mummy straight out of Imhotep's coffin, or sarcophagus. Like, he's the only other one that ages up. Everyone else stays exactly the same age, despite years going by. So everyone around Rhaenyra and Alicent look the same, but it's still 10 years into the future, and you have to like wrap your head around that. So like Sir Criston, for example, he looks exactly the same at the end of the show as he did at the beginning, even though like 15 fucking years has passed or something. And to kind of go back to the pregnancy thing, this also creates a problem because there's so many characters you have to keep track of and remember who's who, like whose kid is who. It's like an absolute daycare. There's kids all over the place, so there's so many characters that you need to remember the name of and where they're at in the universe. And there's two characters that have the exact same name, and they're both important characters. There's two Aegons. There's an Aegon on Alicent's side, and there's an Aegon on Rhaenyra's side. You know, like, it's just so many fucking characters to keep track of because they're always just popping babies out left and right. There's more babies in this show than the entirety of Rugrats. So, it's just, there's just so many characters to constantly keep track of, and the time jumps were a bit frustrating. But those are, like, my only two main complaints, I would say. Everything else I did enjoy. Again, it is a slower paced show. Don't go in there expecting like a ton of action or anything like that. It really is a lot of strategy, like them plotting moves in order to further their goal or in order to stick to a certain plan or tradition. And I just think it's pretty well crafted. One character that I'd like to highlight is the King Viserys. I actually found that character really interesting. And I don't know if this is a spoiler, it might be a minor spoiler, but the first few episodes kind of made it seem like this guy's, he's bad news. This guy, he's done some fucked up shit, and you know, how could you ever forgive him? But by the end of the show, every time he's on screen, he's just being wholesome. Like a warm person who just kind of wants to please everyone, but in trying to please everyone, this pursuit of making everyone around him happy or peaceful, he's kind of just a shit king. Like, overall, like, he's not even, like, a bad... This is what makes it so interesting. He's not even really a bad king, because under his reign, there's really nothing... There's no trouble. There's no big, huge conflict going on. There's no big wars. But he's also just not doing a lot to cement himself as a good king, which is something he also struggles with in the show and talks about with his trusted people. And it's like, yeah, he's kind of not wrong. He doesn't really do anything. He's like a filler arc in Naruto. He's just kind of there, and under his reign, things are good for most people around him, but he's always trying to make things better, and in this pursuit to make things better, he usually fails, and chooses, maybe not incorrectly, but chooses something that doesn't further anything, but he's always just trying to be nice. I don't know if I'm doing his character justice and explaining him. It's hard to do without getting into spoilers, but he's done some fucked up shit, but every time he's on screen, or every speech he gives, or everything and decision he makes, it seems like he's trying to do it from a place of love for his family and the people adjacent to his family and kingdom. So I don't know, I just found that character to be something of a standout, and the actor portraying him did a really great job of walking that line of like a nice guy, like just a decent man in a ruthless time, I suppose. But yeah, I just thought that was a cool character. And Daemon as well. I think Daemon is the other side of King Viserys. It's his brother. And I think Daemon is another extremely interesting character because you're never quite sure where exactly his head's at and what he's trying to do and accomplish for himself. So, I don't know. I just really did enjoy the season overall, even though there were times I felt it to be quite lackluster. And I chalk a lot of that up to the time jumping and having to like restart learning about characters and their positions from episode to episode. Even though it wasn't that big of a deal, you did still have to spend like an additional 15-20 minutes getting reacquainted with what's going on now since so much time's passed, and that was a bit of a headache. So, not perfect by any means, but I did think they did a good job and a lot better than I was expecting. It makes me excited for season 2. So, you know, plugging House of the Dragon into the Moist meter, I'm going to give it a nice clean 80%, and I'm really optimistic for season 2 of this. According to HBO, from what I've read, don't know if this is a real report, so take it with a grain of salt, this was their slowest season they'll ever do because it's all about setting up the future and where it goes from here, which is, you know, based on how this wrapped up, it's going to be fucking all-out chaos. So I'm excited to see how they tackle that, and yeah, that's about it. So yeah.
This episode of Moist Meter brought to you by Godslap. Issue 3 is out right now at godslapbook.com. You can find links below in the description. Go check it out.
Initiating moisture.
I can't even begin to describe how low the bar has been set with video game live action shows, with things like the Halo television series being an affront to God and probably just a downright violation of the Geneva Convention. That show was absolutely atrocious and should be considered a war crime, and we didn't even have a moment to catch our breath because they came right back around and dunked our head in the septic tank with Witcher Blood Origin. Point is, video game live action shows have not been hitting. They have been shitting, and my god, it's been awful. Now, video game shows have been working in like an animated format, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, for example, or Arcane, but Last of Us was live action. So I was a little scared, but I was cautiously optimistic because Last of Us, the game, is a fucking masterpiece. The first Last of Us game is an unreal experience that already has all of the DNA to be a great show. All you have to do is follow the roadmap without getting too cute with it and thinking you know better and changing everything. And I'm happy to say they didn't. Not only did they follow the roadmap of Last of Us, they improved upon it. The things they changed or added actually improved the overall narrative somehow, which I didn't think was possible. It fleshes out some characters we didn't get to spend a lot of time with in the game, like Sarah, Joel's daughter. She was only in there for a little bit, but in the show, she has like a whole episode dedicated to really giving a ton of information about her, and we learn a lot about her and Joel's relationship, so it makes what happens next feel much more impactful. Which is incredible because in the game, that intro sequence I still think is one of the finest in all of gaming. The intro to The Last of Us is pure perfection, and in the show, it is done justice. It's done just as well, if not better, because we got to spend more time with Sarah, so everything that happens feels bigger and more emotional. And they don't do that with just the characters, they do it with the world itself, and I really appreciated that. All of the main story beats are still fully intact, however, there's a lot more that does go differently than the game in this show. For example, Bill and Frank. Bill and Frank in the game are not a huge part by any means, but in this show, they have an entire episode dedicated to them and their relationship. Now, there's things I like and dislike about that approach because I think they did a great job with Bill and Frank's relationship. I think it's a good episode, but I do miss the chemistry between Joel and Bill. In the game, the two interact. The two, they work together. I'm trying not to get into spoilers too much here. In the show, Joel is very, very, very minor in that episode. Very minor in Bill and Frank's life. So you don't get that same effect where Joel and Bill have this chemistry together. And that's okay. Like, I didn't mind it. I did miss it a little bit, but the episode still does a great job, and the story beat is still intact. Bill does still serve the same purpose in the show that he did in the game. So all of that is still intact, and they go about it in a different way that I think does work, but I do miss the Bill and Joel chemistry. And I feel that way about a couple of other things as well. Example, the infected in this show aren't prevalent, like at all. They're there sometimes, but very sporadically used, and I get that they're not the focal point, they weren't the focal point in the game either, but in the game you do encounter them quite a bit, and it helps with the pacing of things and making things feel higher stakes. In the show, since the infection, the infected, all that is kind of at the back burner to the people and the characters around it, it doesn't feel like the stakes are always as high as they say they are because we, while watching the show, haven't seen it as much. So I would have liked if they played a bit more of an integral role in the show, if we saw a bit more of like how devastating and how brutal life is out there with the infected. But it's not that big of a deal. That's not a huge complaint of mine. It's just something I wanted to point out. I really don't have major complaints about the show in general. I liked it a lot. I think everything they did here worked. I think Pedro Pascal as Joel was an amazing choice. I think Bella Ramsey as Ellie was amazing. Like, all of the characters did a great job. And I can't believe the tactic of don't play the games before playing the roles worked out. Because I hate that shit. I don't see the point in telling your talent to not play the source material. I still don't get that at all. Like, you don't have to be impersonating the characters. You don't have to be fucking cosplaying as them or whatever. Like, you don't have to be a caricature of it. But it should at least be good to have that knowledge of how their role was played in the source material. But I digress. They told them not to play the games, and it still worked. The portrayal of Joel and Ellie in the show was very faithful to how they were portrayed in the game. Like, it was just really well done. And I also liked the new characters they introduced. They did introduce new characters that I thought would absolutely just be a stupid idea, but they made it work. And those new characters added a lot of elements to the development of both Joel and Ellie, or the world around them. Like, everything they did here was a good call for the most part. I don't have anything that I can point to and be like, that sucked. But there is one thing I can point to and say, I wanted more. And that is in regards to the finale. I feel like they rushed it. Now, not in a terrible way. It's not like this is a horrible, rushed, awful ending or anything like that. But I feel like they wanted to get through it pretty quickly when I think it would have benefited from maybe an extra episode. Like, if they had one more episode to really drive in the nail with everything that happens at the hospital and everything leading up to the hospital, it would have hit much harder. They kind of speed ran that and made Joel the fucking Terminator. They made him the goddamn Punisher out there. He was nearly immortal, like John Wick going through there, dispatching everything, and it didn't have that big buildup. This is a spoiler, but you know how it goes in the game, right? Like, you know Joel eventually takes Ellie back because to get the cure, they would have had to kill Ellie. And he had already lost his daughter. He wasn't going to lose Ellie, the closest thing he's had to a daughter since. So he snaps, he kills all the Fireflies, he takes Ellie back. All of that happens in the space of like 15 minutes at the end of this show. That entire sequence is like 15 minutes in the show. If they had dedicated a whole episode to building up to that and building to that and even exploring in the hospital beforehand, I think it would have really benefited from that, because I think there was a lot more they could have done there as opposed to just speed run how that plays out. Now, I get in the game that it also happens quick. I do understand that, especially since you are the player character and this is your moment. Like, you just go fucking hog wild, you kill like 1,000 fucking people. It's all gruesome, it's all bloody, and it is here too. It's gruesome, merciless, bloody, all of that you expect. Very faithful. But this was a good opportunity to do more with it as well and deliver more in this moment. At least that's what I would have liked to see, but I'm not disappointed either. Like, I can't say that I think it's bad, because it's far from it. It's not bad. I guess I just really wanted more from it, because I thought there would be. Like, they have whole episodes dedicated to flashbacks, right? Like, they have a whole flashback episode for Ellie and her best friend and how she ended up getting bit. I think this was a really good opportunity to give a whole episode dedicated to the most important turning point for The Last of Us, with Joel and Ellie here in the hospital. So that's just like the one thing that I'd like to point out as another thing that I think would have really helped overall elevate the show. But it's also not bad in its current state by any means with the ending or how all of that's tackled. It's still extremely good. The Last of Us is an amazing game, and I'm happy to say The Last of Us show is an amazing show. Plugging this into the Moist meter, I'm giving The Last of Us show a 90%. I think they did an extraordinary job with it. They absolutely fucking crushed it. So I'm very happy to see that it was done well. And yeah, as most of you know, we started our own comic book series called Godslap. Everyone who's read Godslap so far has unanimously agreed that it's the best comic ever produced, and Godslap is well on its way to becoming the biggest name in all of comics, overthrowing Marvel within the next 5 years, according to recent scientific projections that I'm pulling out of my ass. It's a passion project created by myself, Jackson, Danny, and Matt, and we brought in an industry veteran named Aubrey Sitterson to help write it with us, and we're extremely proud of what we've created. Issue 1 and 2 are already out, and Issue 3 came out today, as of right now. Issue 3 is available at godslapbook.com, and per usual, this is the standard cover, but we also have 2 limited edition variants, which will only exist until they're sold out, and then they'll never be reprinted. So they're available at godslapbook.com. The Moist Meter is a proud partner of our comic book series Godslap and Plague Seeker. Both are available at badegg.co, link in the description. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Transformers film. When it comes to live-action Transformers movies, you never know what to expect here. You could get a super stinker, or you could get a good film. There's no telling. It's been really up and down with the quality of the live-action films, and I didn't know where this one would rank on the tier list here, but I was somewhat hopeful because I loved Beast Wars growing up. I not only religiously watched the Beast Wars show, but I even played the games, the old PlayStation 1 games where it was like a battle arena. I loved it. I collected the action figures. I, in fact, still have them in my garage somewhere, and still remember the shame of having to ask my parents how to make the owl transform into the robot itself, because for some reason, the fucking owl Maximal had this. I don't know if it was just me being a stupid, smooth-brained, milk-drinking toddler idiot who couldn't figure it out, or if there was a legitimate malfunction with the product, but for some reason, the owl's chest would never alter, and that's where the robot's head was. So I could never actually turn it into anything more than like some kind of disgruntled owl. And it always made me mad. And I still have that somewhere in the garage. But point is, I love the Beast Wars. So I wanted this movie to be good. And I'm pleased to say that it's not bad. I wouldn't say that it's great, but it's certainly not bad. I enjoyed it far more than many other Transformers live action films. And of course, I'm only talking live action. I still think the animated Transformers films bang a bit harder than most of the live action, but I do think this movie was good. So let's talk about it. Let's dive in here. As is expected with a Transformers film, there's going to be a huge emphasis on humans. And historically, that could go wrong, and has gone wrong many times for the franchise, but I will say I think they did a great job with the human storyline here. It wasn't boring, and they actually did give the humans more to do than just tedious chores, where a lot of other Transformers movies, the only thing humans were capable of were just like really low-level things to help contribute barely. Since they can't fucking fight the robots there, they're not going to get up there and start slapping a robot around. But in this film, they actually do give the humans more to do in terms of fighting. So I'm trying not to get into spoilers, but they do have moments where the humans actually do fight, which I thought was very fun. And I think the main character, Noah, stands out and did a really great job. I think they did a great job with that character. I will say, though, that I would have liked if... It's hard to talk about it without getting into spoilers. I would have liked if at the end they didn't just throw so many plot conveniences all at once just for the sake of giving humans a little more to do. Because at the very end, they just start pulling shit out of their ass, and it's like, this really horrible thing's about to happen, but luckily there's a code that a human being can type in, so one of the humans can go type in that code and save the day, basically, if you're ready, and, you know, if you're brave enough to do so. So, I thought it got a little silly at the end with giving them these very convenient problems to solve that really only humans can, because they're small things like typing on a space keyboard, but, you know, it's not the biggest deal in the world, I suppose. I am, however, a little disappointed that the Maximals don't have more screen time, because the film is called Rise of the Beasts. You would think that they were kind of the main draw here, but they're kind of sidelined in this movie. You spend most of the time with the humans and with the Autobots, and a little bit with Optimus Primal, who's the best Maximal, admittedly. But you don't see pretty much any of the other Maximals except Air who has quite a bit to offer to the plot in the film. But you don't ever see Cheetor do anything until the very end. He also only has like maybe 2 lines in the movie. Rhinox, I'm pretty sure, doesn't say a single word. He has less lines than I did in The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. I don't know what happened with Rhinox. Maybe they just didn't feel like hiring someone to do voice acting, or they didn't feel like writing words for him. I have no fucking clue, but I'm pretty sure Rhinox doesn't say shit. He's just there for the final fight with the other Maximals. Like, it's just a little sad that since the film is called Rise of the Beasts, you would expect them to play a big role here, but they legitimately don't even do anything or even come into play until the very end of the film, which kind of sucks. But I will say they did a good job with the Autobots. I enjoyed watching a different kind of Optimus Prime, one who's kind of a douchebag. Like, that was interesting. I don't think they've ever made Optimus Prime just a straight up asshole in any of the films that I can recall. Well, that's not true. He kind of like murdered a guy in cold blood once. But other than that, this guy, Optimus Prime in this film was going through like an edgy phase, right? You know, he's out there listening to some post-hardcore music, and he's like, you know, it's all my fault. I've done everything wrong. And fuck the humans. They're puny and weak, and they make me sick. Like, that was kind of cool. I haven't seen that side of Optimus Prime before, and he has a whole arc that, you know, ends up pretty cool at the very end, bonding with humans eventually. I also think Pete Davidson as Mirage was a really good fit. Like, he did a good job with that character. The character of Mirage walks a fine line between being charming and being extremely annoying, and Pete Davidson fucking tap danced on that line right there, and it worked. I really think I have no complaints about anything the Autobots did or any of the Autobots in the film. They were just all around solid. And the action was great. The action was very fun. It's always fun to watch giant robots fighting. But in this film, I think they really nailed the action. A lot of times it looks like fucking 3 soda cans colliding against each other during a Transformers fight. Here, I think they did a good job of making all of the action clear. Especially in the final climactic fight, there's a lot of really cool moments that had the audience clapping. Now, let's get into some complaints here, because besides just the lack of Maximals in the film, I've got some gripes with it. It's hard to get into without spoilers. There are so many narrative ass pulls at the end that it is laughable. I know I briefly mentioned them, but it gets absurd. Fucking random coded kill switch for humans to use in the most important moment. Empty pipes for humans to crawl through in giant robot technology that serve no purpose other than to be a tunnel for humans to sneak through. I'm trying, I know these are kind of minor spoilers. I'm trying to keep it as minor as possible, but there are so many fucking conveniences at the end of this film. I shit you not, there's even just a full-blown revival thanks to super rocks, super special rocks of Energon. Like, nothing matters because everything at the end, it's just like they have the answer to every single thing ever, including death itself. And that's another complaint. There's so many, fake out death moments for some fucking reason. So many I might be exaggerating. There's a few fake out deaths, and I think there should never really be more than one. It just takes all of the stakes away from everything. You have these turbo bad guys, super evil villains, they're fucking powered by dark matter and a bad attitude. But for some reason, they don't ever finish anyone off. Or when you think they finish someone off, they do it in a way where it's kind of ambiguous. They don't cut someone's fucking head off. They don't chop them into pieces or anything. They just blast them with an energy ray and they're like, oh, it took the spark. And it's like, okay, but I mean, what's that really mean? Because you can just get the spark back if you have a powerful enough rock. And I'm not using rock as a way of trying to hide a special item in the film. I mean it's just a normal rock, a normal human rock that just happens to be kind of powerful when it comes to Energon. Death doesn't really even exist in the film. It's just kind of silly. And I also really hate the bad guy they introduce here. Not the super bad guy, but the super bad guy's bad guy, the right hand, Scourge. He's very hands-off in his hunting. He's very powerful. They make it clear right away that he's very powerful. But when it comes to the humans, he's fucking worthless. He's like a Scooby-Doo villain. He keeps catching them and then letting them go over and over again. And he has these tiny little spiders that he sends their way, but the spiders fucking suck. They die to a stick. The spiders, the robot spiders from the big evil bad guy, die to a stick. What the fuck? Why does he keep using the spiders? Not once were they helpful. The humans were easily able to defeat them with just household objects. They got hit by a goddamn pole once, a tiny little bar once. Jesus Christ, stop using them. Just do it yourself. There are moments where the bad guy Scourge literally has one of the humans in his hands and just starts monologuing instead of just killing him. Even though he has shown that he has absolutely no mercy whatsoever. So why the fuck are you just talking at this guy monologuing? It just gets a little, overdone when it happens a couple of times here. So, just definitely wanted to mention that. I do understand it's Transformers, so it's going to have some of that cheesy, tropey kind of shit in there, and that's fine. But I think they just use that too much. Again, the main bad guy, the right hand, just keeps sending spiders after the humans, even though he himself could have easily just taken care of it almost instantly. I also think there's a massive plot hole here that I can't really get into, because it's clearly a big spoiler. But I think that the motivation for something the Maximals did, or rather didn't do, is nonsensical, and it would have completely thwarted the entire plot of the film. It would have stopped everything bad from happening before it was ever even a problem. And I've been really racking my brain on it, trying to figure out why they did or didn't do something, and I just can't come up with an answer. I don't know if maybe I missed something, but there was a very crucial MacGuffin in the film that I feel could have been handled in a very different way by the Maximals. And I'll just leave it at that. I think if you've seen the film, you're probably knowing what I'm getting at here. But yeah, I'm getting real deep into it. Overall, I liked the movie. I thought it was fun and enjoyable. Yes, I was disappointed there weren't more Maximals because I like Beast Wars and I really thought they were going to be front and center. We've seen so much from the Autobots already. I would have thought they were trying to shift the focus to the Maximals here because that's very different from the normal Transformers, but they don't really, and I wouldn't even say that they share the spotlight. The Maximals are kind of just supporting characters to the Autobots, and it works in the climactic fight well. I think they complement each other really well. I just really would have liked to see more, especially from characters like Cheetor and Rhinox. I mean, those are classic characters. Like, show some fucking respect here. Let them do more than just have one line and two fight scenes, right? But overall, I thought the movie was enjoyable. Plugging Transformers Rise of the Beast into the Moistmeter, I'm just going to give it like a nice 65%. So, yeah, that's really about it. So, yeah. Huge thanks to ourselves for sponsoring this Moistmeter. Godslap is a comic series written by myself, Jackson, Matt, Danny, and Aubrey Sitterson. It follows the story of a character named Ace, who's an extremely powerful slapper in a world where slapping is king. Issue 3 just dropped. It's all available at badegg.co, and shit is starting to pop off. Ace is being hunted by a mysterious foe named Defister, who, after swan diving through a hospital, picks up Ace's trail and hunts him to the ends of the earth with his sidekick Olfactor. And also, our newest comic series, Plague Seeker, just came out. Issue 0 is available at badegg.co. It's written entirely by myself and edited by Jackson. It's set in a world 1,000 years after an apocalyptic event known as the Calamity. An asteroid hits Earth, and it brought with it mutations that changed all of its inhabitants. Now the world is infested with things called plagues, and atop the food chain sits 8 great plagues that control the entire world, and only one man stands against them, the Plague Seeker, who has an insatiable appetite to devour those 8 great plagues. So all of this is available at badegg.co, so please check it out. So yeah.